Hello guys, a few weeks ago I made a video of my model stash of 1/35th scale armoured vehicles, and that was quite a popular video. I got lots of positive feedback from that, with lots of people saying they wanted to see the rest of my stash. So I thought I'd make a second part, this time featuring my aircraft models, my sci-fi models, and a couple of train models. If any of those topics don't interest you, then you can skip to the ones that do, using the chapter indicators on the progress bar below or in the description. So let's start with two 1/72nd scale train models, both from Hobby Boss. First of all, we have the German commando wagon. You might remember a while ago that I built the BR-57 armoured train, and really this commando wagon is designed to go with that. Looking back on it, the price I paid, £27 UK, is quite expensive for what you get. If we look inside, you can see the majority of the box is taken up with these track bed pieces. And here on the left hand side is basically our entire model kit. This is our wagon itself, moulded as one complete piece, and then just the lower part for that there. There are a few extra pieces on another sprue, but really there's not a huge amount in this kit. Nevertheless, it is unique to Hobby Boss, so I am quite glad that I've got this. Looking at the next kit, this is also from Hobby Boss. It's the WR360 locomotive. Not really designed to be used with the wagon I just showed you. I can't quite remember why I bought this. I had a good idea for it at the time, but I just can't quite remember what that was now. But anyway, again, you can see quite a tiny kit in terms of the pieces for the engine. A couple of sprues there, a bit more detail than the previous kit. And then primarily some railway material there. Okay, moving on to my ship kits. The first one is a 1/35th scale kit, maybe it should have gone in the previous video, and that is this LCM landing craft from Trumpeter. Quite a big box here. This has space inside for some troops, also space for a Sherman and a tank or similar as well. You can see the majority of the kit is this big single piece lower hull piece here. This can be made as both the Royal Navy and the US Navy versions. There are just tiny differences between them, which are pointed out in the instructions. I'm really keen to make this, I just haven't quite decided how I'm going to use it yet. I could have some tanks rolling off it into the surf. I could have it being loaded perhaps on a dock side, although I'm not sure if it'd be loaded directly dock side or if it'd be loaded from a bigger ship. I guess the tanks would be loaded dock side. But yes, quite a straightforward build I think on this one. My next ship is the first ship kit that I bought, which is the USS Indianapolis. The Indianapolis, of course, is famous as the ship which delivered the components for the atomic bombs to be dropped on Japan. And shortly after completing that mission it was sunk. Trumpeter also do a 1/350 scale version of this ship, but I do believe that this Academy version is supposed to be the better version of the two. Moving on, we've got the Tamiya Tirpitz, again 1/350 scale. A huge ship, as you might imagine, huge model, and one that one day I will definitely open up and build. I bought this because I got an excellent price on it. I can't remember what it was now, but it was really a very decent price, so I snapped it up. And then my final ship kit is one that I showed you back in January, the Prince of Wales. In my January the 1st video we had a look inside this, and this is going to be the first ship that I build when I get around to that. Once I've cleared my desk of current projects, I feel like this will be up there fairly soon. Okay, and moving on to my sci-fi kits. I say sci-fi, but in reality I mean Star Wars. I don't have any other science fiction kits apart from Star Wars ones. Let's start with the smallest. This is from Bandai, as you can see, and it's their tiny unknown scale as far as I'm concerned, AT-ST and Snowspeeder from The Empire Strikes Back. It can be a bit misleading buying these online because some less scrupulous sellers do sort of show a picture of this full screen, and you can be fooled into thinking this is the 1/48 scale Snowspeeder, but it isn't. It is the tiny scale one. And these kits only cost Well, this one cost me less than $10 US. I forget what it was now, but it was less than $10 US. Despite the size, it has got a lot of detail, just like the bigger Bandai kits. And if you're a Star Wars fan, it's useful to know that this ATST is actually the Empire Strikes Back version. And that just means that the leg is slightly longer in that middle section than the later versions. You can see these in the background of the Empire Strikes Back film. So like I say, not many steps, not many pieces, but still some good detail. And the instructions, as with all these tiny kits, are inside the lid. Moving on to a bigger kit but a smaller scale, this is the Bandai Super Star Destroyer. These Super Star Destroyers are apparently 19 kilometers or 12 miles long, so you can work out the scale for yourself on that one. Suffice to say, I don't think we're going to get a 1/48 scale version anytime soon. Just like the other kit, it's very detailed inside, as detailed as it can be given the tiny scale, but that should be a fun, quick build. Moving on to the Revel Star Destroyer. This is a 1 to 12,000 scale model, roughly. I always thought that the Revel kits were basically the Bandai kits reboxed, but they are completely different toolings. And although the Revel kit's decent, just looking at it, even through the plastic, you can tell the detail's just not quite as good as the Bandai kits. It's just not quite there. It's a bit softer, and there's just less of it. Nevertheless, I'm going to enjoy building this, and in one of the films, I forget which one now, it's been a while since I watched them, there is a scene of two Star Destroyers crashing into each other, which is why I bought two of these kits from Hobbycraft when they were on sale back at Christmas. Okay, stepping up now to the larger kits, here's our 1/72 scale Bandai Y-Wing. This is a fantastic kit. I have built it before. The reason I bought another one was partly because I really enjoyed building it first time, partly because I lived in Malaysia where these things were a lot cheaper than they are in Europe, and partly because the first one I built, I made the mistake of using an enamel wash all over it, and the plastic that Bandai uses does not like enamel washes. My first Y-Wing is literally crumbling now on the shelf. I'll walk past it every day, and every few weeks I'll notice another piece has just fallen off from the underside and so on, which is a big shame. I think what I will do is build this kit and then repurpose and maybe repaint the other one as like a wrecked ship in the desert or the jungle or something, because it's turning into a wreck on its own now anyway. If we look inside, this is typical of a larger scale Bandai kit. We've got multicoloured plastic mouldings, incredible amounts of detail. In this particular case, we get standing and seated figures. And you often get this section here as well, which is a section of the Death Star surface, and it's designed to act as a base. You get a stand included as well in each of these kits. The Bandai instructions are always quite interesting, not the easiest to follow, I find. You typically have each step broken down into lots of sub-steps, but sometimes you do have to jump around the page a bit to find the next step. It's not always as easy as you might think. Rather than being booklets, the instructions tend to be a big fold-out sheet as well, which can get in the way a little bit. Next up is the Bandai TIE Interceptor. I've already built the TIE Fighter and the TIE Advanced on this channel. You can find videos in the description below. Not much to say about this one. I'm sure it will go together really well. No big issues, I'm sure. Moving back to the Rebels, and we've got the X-Wing. Bandai do a lot of versions of the X-Wing. They do Pose X-Wing and the Resistance X-Wing and things like this. This is from the original trilogy. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to build this. I suppose I am slightly tempted to do the now slightly cliched X-Wing rising out of the swamp on Dagobah diorama, but I've seen some very good renditions of that on various people's channels, so maybe I'll do something different. Maybe a trench run. Next up is the Snowspeeder, this time in 1/48 scale. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to paint and build this. I suppose I could have it crash into the snow on Hoth, as in The Empire Strikes Back, but I feel like the small scale version that I showed you earlier might be better for that. I might look into some of the alternative, maybe even non-canon marking schemes for this, or possibly just something slightly different, maybe inside the rebel base on Hoth, so sort of almost like a maintenance scene or something similar. The Rebel B-Wing is next in 1/72nd scale. Not a ship that you see a lot in Star Wars. I think it was only in the Return of the Jedi. This is posable in either the sort of the attack pose, like the cross there, or folded down with the wings away. I'm not sure if those wings are movable once the model is built. I think they are, but it is possible that you might have to just commit to one or the other. I feel like that would be another good model for a sort of a maintenance scene or a docking scene or something. Another TIE fighter here, very similar to the original TIE fighter, the original trilogy TIE fighter. This time First Order Special Forces, 1/72nd scale. This is from The Force Awakens. And I'm quite tempted for this one to do some kind of damaged crashed TIE fighter scene. Maybe sort of in the desert, maybe to cut away the bottom of those wings there, and just have it sort of crashed and have dragged through the desert for some distance, leaving a trail of debris behind it. But I'm not 100% decided yet. I got this kit quite cheaply, which is why I'm not too reticent to chop it up. And the final of the 1/72nd or 1/48th scale vehicles, this is the AT-ST in 1/48 scale. So basically the same as the first kit I showed you, most famously seen of course in Return of the Jedi on Endor. I was quite tempted, and I am still quite tempted, to build a wrecked version of this, possibly even a version that's fallen over on its side and is rusting away and having sort of the forest regrow through it or something like that. I haven't quite decided yet, but I do feel like I'd want to do something along those lines. I really enjoyed the Japanese Zero wreck diorama that I made a while ago, and I want to do another one along those lines. Same thing with the sort of the zombie diorama as well. Some kind of abandoned vehicle, basically. Moving on, the next kits are in 1/12 scale, and I'm really excited about this first one. The Scout Trooper is by far my favourite Stormtrooper. Just love the look of that helmet, that mask. And of course the speeder bikes are iconic as well. Let's have a quick look inside. There's some lovely brown plastic speeder bike parts there. And then the Stormtroopers, basically you build up a sort of a black inner skeleton, and then the white armour plates clip on top. We also at the bottom get a small piece of plastic to represent the base, and what looks like a tree there as well. You can articulate the final Stormtrooper models fairly well, so you can have them sat on the speeder bike or standing by it or sitting down somewhere else. So lots of options there. Definitely looking forward to building this one. Staying on the figures, and we've got your bog standard Stormtrooper here. I built one of these before. The reason that I want to build this again is because I want to do something slightly different. I might turn this into one of the sort of variants of the Stormtroopers. So that might be, I don't know, like there's an incinerator trooper, there's like a swamp trooper, something like that. So I'm going to customize this slightly. I was really inspired by Model Chili's scale model channel, where he does lots of different custom builds of various Stormtroopers. So I'm sure I'll be looking at some of his videos again and trying to get some inspiration there. But the Swamp Trooper is definitely something that I'm inspired by. Or basically just one of the sort of, the really, really dirty, battle-weary Stormtroopers, like the ones we saw at the start of the Solo film. Next up, just a small variation from the regular Stormtrooper, it's your Sand Trooper. Basically the changes here are on the equipment that's included with them. So yeah, I kind of fell for that marketing. What can I say? Something a bit different here, we've got the Shore Trooper, which is from Rogue One. When I build this, I'm definitely going to get a bit of resin going and having this guy, well, wading through the shore basically. Maybe some knee-height water or something. maybe like a tropical sort of beach in the background, something like that, but I think that would be pretty cool. Next up, 1/12 scale still, Boba Fett. All of these Bandai figure kits are moulded in a way that you don't need to paint them. However, I think it's very, very clear with Boba Fett that you would have to paint this one in order to get all those chipping effects and so on. We do have the different colour plastic inside. So you can see you've got the sort of the light grey base shirt and then the green armour on top and so on. But just like the Slave One ship itself, lots and lots of damage effects there, and I think that needs to be done with some hairspray chipping and so on. And my final two sci-fi Star Wars figures, R2-D2 and R5-D4. I wasn't super interested in this kit, to be honest, but my friend started his own scale model store, and I thought, I've got to go support him, so I bought this. It is a nice kit. The one difficulty with these, you can actually see I've taken some of the parts off the sprue to start to build it. We get pieces like this for R2-D2, and they slot into the back part of the main body to provide those details, which in a way is quite nice and quite clever. It's a good way of not having to mask everything. However, the tolerances on Bandai kits are really, really tight. You can snap these kits together. I've never used any glue on a Bandai kit, but they're so tight that if I were to get some paint on this blue part first, that might make the difference between the part fitting and not fitting when it came to adding it to the body. So it's great that I've got no masking to do, but I do need to be very careful when it comes to painting it. Okay, so we've looked at sci-fi, we've looked at trains, and we've looked at ships. Now let's look at things that fly. First up, not much to say about this one. This is the Sunderland Mark III from Italeri, and I looked through this in my January the 1st video. So again, I'm not going to say much about that, except it is still on the soon list in terms of builds. Moving on, I do seem to have been on a bit of an aircraft purchasing binge recently, particularly Airfix aircraft for some reason. I'm kind of drawn to aircraft that are not commonly seen, or aircraft in unusual camouflage schemes. So the first up is the Armstrong Whitworth Whitley. You don't see these built up that often. I saw a beautiful one in a model show I was at last year. I forget which show it was now, but it was really, really nice. The interesting thing about these two schemes is we've got the white there, which is the Coastal Command scheme, and the brown and the green, which, as it says on the side over here somewhere, is the British Overseas Aircraft Corporation, so a civilian aircraft there, I believe. It's unusual, but nice inclusion. Very strange, not exactly elegant lines on this kit, really elongated body, but I am looking forward to building it. Next up, the Fortress 3, which is the B-17E or F, I think, but in RAF hands. I think these had a variety of roles in the RAF, reconnaissance and sea rescue, and in this particular version I do believe it was used basically to drop window, which is just metal strips dropped out of the back of the aircraft in an attempt to confuse German radar. So as Bomber Command would send Lancasters and Halifaxes over every night to Germany, these fortresses would go up there and just basically try to confuse the German defences. I really like Airfix kits. I just hope that this one doesn't have any of the warping that I saw on my Lancaster kits. Talking of fortresses, here's another one. This is the B-17G, this time in American hands. And this is a huge box, and it comes with the bomber resupply kit as well. So if you're a fan of my channel, you might have seen the RAF resupply kit that I built recently with the Lancaster. This is the US Air Force version of that, basically. The kit here shows the olive drab and neutral grey scheme for the B-17G. I think I'm right in saying the majority of the Gs were in natural metal finish, and I have bought some separate decals for a aircraft in that finish. In fact, you can see here on the included scheme, one of the wings is natural metal finish on this, so it's obviously a replacement part or something. Going back to British aircraft, and we've got the Sterling Mark IV. This is the glider tug version. For a long time I just wanted the regular Bomber Command version, but I couldn't find it anywhere, so when this one came along I grabbed it. I think I'm right in saying that the parts to make the Bomber Command version are still included. If I'm correct, and my memory is fading me slightly here, I think the only difference is the inclusion of a top turret, and I do believe the parts are in the box for this. Let's have a quick look inside. There's a big decal sheet there. I would tend to paint things like the D-Day or the invasion stripes rather than using the decals, but they're there if you need them. We've got 4 different schemes, but in reality, of course, it's all the dark earth and dark green, it's just different code letters. A little bit of photo etch, and some quite deep panel lines on there, but I think they'll be okay once the aircraft is painted. Sticking with Bomber Command aircraft, which I've had a bit of a run on recently, this is the Revell Halifax. I went for this one over the Airfix one because I do believe the Airfix is one of those kind of notorious re-releases of a much older kit in a brand new box, whereas this version of the Halifax is a more recent mould, more recent tooling. Looking at the side of the box, it certainly seems like there's a good amount of interior detail, so I shall enjoy building this, I'm sure. Still with Bomber Command, and we've got another Airfix Lancaster. Obviously I am a glutton for punishment here because, well, I already know, I've already looked inside this and I already know those Bombay door halves are warped in this kit as well. They were in my 2 Mark 1s, they are in this one, they were in the Dam Busters kit as well. I know Dam Buster doesn't have the Bombay doors, but they were included still in the kit and they were warped as well. So who knows, maybe for this version I will do it with the Bombay doors closed, I don't know. Although I still have got some spare ordnance from that RAF resupply kit, so who knows. This kit of course is the Mark II Lancaster, which is the same except for the engines. So most Lancasters of course are powered by the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, but there was a fear that the British production of engines might be vulnerable and that the American production of the engines by Packard would also be vulnerable if America entered World War II. So with that in mind, the Mark II Lancaster was developed with the Hercules radial engines, and that's what we can see here in this kit. The Mark II Lancaster wasn't used for long. It was phased out by the end of 1943, when basically the threat to the production of the Merlin engines was reduced. And the Mark Is and the Mark Threes were found to be slightly superior as well in terms of their bomb carrying capacity. And next up is another Lancaster. This is the Dam Busters version. I am a bit of a Lancaster fan in case you didn't notice. And of course my favourite thing about this kit is I will not have to deal with those Airfix warped Bombay doors. Because of course the upkeep mine goes below the fuselage and is just exposed to the airstream. And then what's up next? It's not an Airfix kit, but it is a Lancaster kit, and it's another Dam Busters kit. Why do I have 2 Dam Busters Lancasters? Quite simple really. I want to build a Grand Slam Lancaster, and they're really hard to find in 1/72 scale. The only one I'm aware of is the Hasegawa kit, and that goes for crazy money online. So I've got this version from Revell, and I've got some 3D printed parts that I bought from a gentleman on eBay, which give me the Grand Slam bomb, the slightly modified Bombay area, and the modified front as well. We have a panel that covers up that front turret to save weight. So this will become my Grand Slam version of the Lancaster. Next up is not a Lancaster. It's a 1/48 scale, tiny little aircraft. The NI-11. If we have a look inside, I sort of started this. I got as far as removing the parts from the sprue and then I obviously got distracted by something else. But considering this is in 1/48 scale, just look how tiny this is. Very small indeed. This should be as the name would suggest, it should be a weekend build really. So I'll get around to that at some point in the future when I want a quick build. 2 colour schemes here, very bright 3 colour scheme here, and probably the one I'll go for, the darker green camouflage version. Staying on biplanes, this is the KB Sopwith Dolphin in Polish service, 1/72 scale. This particular brand KP was suggested by one of my subscribers recently, so next time I was in the model shop I had a look and noticed this here. Thought I'd give it a go. Looks like a fun little kit. I've got a couple of variations on the back, one basically with the grey metal nose and one with a camouflage nose. Next up, another kit from Eduard. This is one of their Profi packs, so you get a lot more in it than you do in the weekend editions. So the Tempest Mark V Series 2, and looking on the side there we can see we've got 6 different schemes. The big standouts of course are the all natural metal finish version and the camouflage version with the D-Day stripes. Some of these are post-war versions. The reason I went for this kit is because I have a vision of putting this in a sort of a mid-air diorama with it shooting down, or not shooting down, rather tipping over the Tamiya V1 rocket. I've already built the V1, I've got the video footage for it, I just haven't done anything with it yet. But these pilots were able to knock these V1s off course by flying alongside them, getting their wing under the V1's wing, and the turbulence there from their wingtips would just tip over, even without contact, just tip over the V1s and send them hopefully crashing down in a harmless field rather than in the city. Next up, what I'm told is a lovely kit by Tamiya, and I've no reason to doubt that. The Spitfire Mark I. This is their most recent release. One thing I do like inside this, in these modern Tamiya kits, is all the sort of the paper documents you get, but particularly here, the colour schemes. Considering it's all going to be dark earth and dark green, they've done a good job of giving us some variation. So we've got the natural metal finish underside. That's a pre-war version. We've got the black and white wings underside, which is an identification feature from early Spitfires, and we've got that sky underside, which is the more common later colour. So definitely looking forward to building that one. Next up, a kit that I bought because I like to do aircraft in unconventional colour schemes, and this P-51 Mustang has the RAF desert camo scheme as one option, and this pure green test bed one as another option, as well as 2 olive drab American options. I have done a Mustang before. It was one of my first videos. It might even have been my first ever video on the channel. That was the Tamiya RAF Mustang 3, which I did in the Dayfighter scheme. Next up is another American aircraft in British markings. This is the Hellcat Mark I and Mark II in this dual combo box. So you get here enough parts to build one of each aircraft, a Mark I and a Mark II. And I also have this separate weekend edition which I acquired, I can't remember where from, but very cheaply, of the Hellcat Mark I. Now my plan here is, between these 3 kits, to build a nice variety of colour schemes. So on the Profi Pack version here we've got these 2 blue options, we've got the Temperate Sea scheme of the slate and the grey, but with different options there for roundels, different size roundels, different patterns, with or without D-Day stripes. So I'm going to try to build 3 quite different RAF Hellcats. And to be honest, I'll probably build them all 3 of them in one video and just point out the differences between the Profi Pack and the weekend edition versions. Okay, still going, and I feel like this is going to be a really long video. This is the Tamiya Swordfish Mark I float plane. I saw a fantastic video recently from Scale Model Shed building this kit, or one of the variations of this kit, and it was an absolutely outstanding job. The final result looks incredible, really well weathered. It looks like a really well used, sort of dirty, slightly faded swordfish, so really inspiring there. There's no way I'm going to get to that kind of standard, but it was great to see how this kit can turn out in the hands of a very experienced modeller. You can of course put the wings for this kit either extended or folded back for carrier use. I don't think you can move them from one to the other. Looking through the instructions, I think you have to basically choose and then commit. Here's a kit that surprised me, because when I pulled it out of the box to do this video, I realised that it's not a Spitfire, it's a Hurricane. I could have sworn that I bought this as a Spitfire, but then again I have made the 1/72nd scale Spitfire from Airfix in the past. But in my mind I had this down as a Spitfire. But yeah, a quick kit there. Airfix 1/72nd scale kits tend to go together really well, so at some point I will give that a build. Next up, I bought this kit to go with my series What Are Model Kits from Company X like, and this is the Special Hobby 1/72nd scale Sea Otter. I had never heard of this aircraft until I saw this on the local hobby shop shelf. So I really consider myself lucky that I've got a hobby shop that stocks things like this, because I wouldn't have found it, in an online shop. It's just browsing the aisles that I had this jump out at me. Lovely little kit. I also do have a bit of a soft spot for Far East camo schemes and Far East schemes as well, and the RAAF schemes and the RAF in the Far East as well. So I'm looking forward to painting this. This is a sort of 2-colour scheme, except it's also got counter shading, so it's actually 4 colours. And these special hobby kits, or at least this one, also include resin parts. So you can see we've got the resin engine and various other bits and pieces there. Moving on, we've got the I-16 Type 18. This is a Soviet plane, of course. I got this very cheap from HobbyLink Japan when they had one of their sales. It's a really simple kit. Look how small this plane is. Really sort of a snub nose kind of plane. This would definitely look nice on my shelf. Don't be fooled by the box on this next kit. This is just one aircraft. It's the ME-109, as you can see, E3 or E7, but in overseas markings, either captured by the RAF or an evaluation version used by the Japanese Air Force. You can't buy this kit in the shops. This is one that you get from the Airfix Club. I'm not a member of the Airfix Club. Somebody was just selling this on eBay and it had a good price, so I thought I'd snap it up. I think I'm going to go for the RAF markings on this one, just to confuse anybody who looks at my shelf and can't tell whether it's a Spitfire or a Hurricane. Okay, the FW190A from Edward, Weekend Edition, 1/48 scale. I really like the shorter, snub-nosed versions of the 190. I think it's the later versions that have the longer, more stretched out nose. I'm not such a fan of that one, but I really like this version here. So I will enjoy building that when I get around to it. I also like the mottled camo scheme there. It looks like a lot of fun to build. Okay, now 1/48 scale bomber next. This is from ICM. This is the Junkers 88. One thing I really like a look of in here is the paint schemes. We've got our standard RLM 70 and 71 camo schemes, but we've also got a lovely snow scheme there, which is the one I'm going to use, I think. I'm not sure if this would be painted solid white like this, as it shows in the instructions, or if it would be RLM 70 and 71 with some kind of winter whitewash put over the top, which would give me lots of chance to sort of to weather that back and show some of the paint underneath. I suspect the latter. I think it wouldn't have such a solid white finish unless it was painted like this from the factory. I don't think they were. They might have been, I could be wrong, but I don't think they were. And of course you've got lots of other options for snow schemes as well, sort of squiggly white lines underneath the base paint and everything. So lots of chances to do some weathering there. Hobby 2000 are the manufacturers of this next kit. Though I say that, it's actually a reboxed Hasegawa kit. I haven't built a Stuka yet, and I really would like to, so I grabbed this kit as soon as I saw it. Hobby 2000 typically add a few things to existing manufacturers' kits. So in this case we get, though I can't get them off the bottom of the box, we'll get some canopy masks, which are always helpful, and I believe the paint schemes are original to this kit as well. And those schemes are basically your standard 70/71 and your 70/71 with the desert sand colour over the top of that in a kind of improvised desert scheme. And I think that's the one I'm going to go for. This is a fun looking kit and one of my only 1/32nd scale kits. This is kind of a 3-in-1, the Ellie or the Wally EF-126 or EF-127 aircraft. This was a prototype aircraft developed by the Germans during the late World War II. I think I'm right in saying that the Germans didn't actually build any of these, but after the end of the war, the Soviets, who had obviously captured the technology, did build one version, if I'm correct. Nice thick instruction book here, bit of a sort of story at the beginning, some very clear instructions including nice colour call-outs for the cockpit detail and things. Very nice clear blue highlighting of the new parts to be added. And we've got lots of options. We can have the landing skid down or retracted. The kit can be designed to be built with the wings off if you want a sort of a workshop factory kind of a diorama going on. And the biggest option is between the engine configuration. So we've got this single Argus engine here, mounted above the fuselage. We've got the twin Argus engine either side of the fuselage. And if we go right to the back of the instructions, we've got the single pulse jet version, rocket powered version, with no external bits and pieces. Lots of camo schemes, paint schemes provided at the back, from bare metal finish to wooden finish to Soviet schemes. It's a what-if kit, so you can basically do what you like with it. I do kind of wish it was in either 1/35th scale or 1/48th scale though, but nevertheless, it looks like a fun build. And here is my 1/48th scale ME262. Surprisingly, I haven't built one of those. I haven't built many German aircraft, to be honest, but I wanted to build one of these. I think, along with the Stuka, it's quite an iconic aircraft. Not much to say about this one. Academy aircraft kits are not always the most detailed, but I think it will turn out quite well. I've built a couple of them in the past. The Horton 229, which has a 1/72nd scale and a tiny 1/144 scale version in the box, was looked at in my January the 1st video, so I won't open this box again. But again, it's another sort of a prototype aircraft. A few of them did fly, developed by Germany during the final stages of World War II. And now we're going to take a big step forward in time and go with the Tamiya F-14A Tomcat. I can't believe I had this probably in my stash for over a year now and not started it yet. But it's such a good kit, it's got so much detail in it. It's one of those things that you really need to dedicate yourself to. And so I just need to sit down and get a clear desk before I open this one and start this one. Next up, the Great Wall Hobby GWH F-15C. This was a bit of a spontaneous purchase. It was one of those times where the kit was on offer, it was a good price. I didn't really know much about the F-15 at the time, but I think I'll manage to do something nice with it. Look at the size of this piece inside here. This is just the the rear of the fuselage. It's as big as my hand. It's going to be absolutely crazy. I need to make sure that I buy myself some new shelves before I build this one. Staying with the modern theme, this is the F4S Phantom by Zuke Mura. 1/48 scale, so again it's going to be a big kit. I bought this before the Tamiya Phantom came out. It looks like a really nice kit, lots of details. The instructions for these kits are very crowded though. Just look at the amount of information going on here. There's so much detail in each step. Not helped by the fact, of course, that they've decided to include text in the instructions. And of course that means the text has to be in multiple languages. So it's quite heavy, but I'm sure it is worth persevering with. From 1/48 scale to 1/72 scale, this kit was a spontaneous purchase. Actually, only a couple of weeks ago, I bought some paint. I saw this on the shelf and I was really taken by the colour schemes on the side. I really like the grey and green kind of retro RAF camouflage, but I also quite like the blue scheme there as well, so one of those two will be the one that I do. Next up, we're almost at the end of the aircraft now. The Jaguar by Kitty Hawk in 1/48 scale. I bought this, I got a good price for it. It's a box that's absolutely rammed full of plastic. It's got some great colour schemes in it. And then I was told that it does not necessarily fit together very well. It's hard to know just by looking at some of these pieces, but I suspect there may well be a bit of warpage on the cockpit halves there. But as I say, it has got some great schemes. It's got the desert scheme, which is probably the one that I will go for. It's also got that classic grey and green scheme, which I love. And it's got that grey and green scheme where the green has been covered up by temporary winter camouflage. So all three of those schemes will look fantastic, but I think the desert is the one I'm going to go for. I got this for 40 Singapore dollars, which is probably about 30 British pounds. So, you know, a fairly good price on that kit, which is why I grabbed a hold of it. Next up, another kit that I just grabbed a hold of, mainly because I like the camo scheme. The SU-17 here, 1/48 scale, also from Kitty Hawk. What can I say? I saw the Tiger scheme, I thought that'd be really cool, and I bought it. I don't have a particular fascination with this aircraft. I just like the colour scheme. Yeah, it looked pretty, so I bought it. What can I say? There are some other colour schemes on the side of the box as well, but I mean, you know, I don't think I'm going to fall back to any of those. And my penultimate kit, I got this on a huge discount recently from Hobbycraft. They don't advertise these online, but local stores of Hobbycraft tend to have random sales. And I got this for less than £32. I think it had 25% off that marked price. 1/48 scale Tornado GR4. It only has the one colour scheme indicated on the box, but it does have several schemes inside, including the retro green and grey scheme, and a couple of other schemes as well. Looking forward to building that one. And finally, last but not least, this kit is so big you could think it was a 1/48 scale kit, but it is 1/72 scale, the MiG-25 Foxbat. I've always liked this aircraft. I've always liked the look of it. I've always just, I don't know, it's just maybe the square boxiness of it, of the intakes, the twin tails at the back. I just really, really like it. And even though it's got a sort of fairly boring grey scheme, I like the imposing look of those bright red Soviet stars on that scheme. I think I made one similar to this when I was a kid, although it's, you know, long since lost. So yeah, definitely looking forward to building this one. Okay guys, well, phew, that was a long video in the end. That was trains, planes, spaceships and ships. I feel like I rushed through some of those kits, but still it turned out to be quite a long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to see a inbox preview of any of these kits, then do leave me a comment below. I'd be happy to do a more of an in-depth look at them. If you'd like to see any of these kits built, you know, let me know. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate every one of you who watches, who likes, who comments, who subscribes, and of course my Patreon subscribers. This has been part 2 of my stash. I've deliberately not counted the kits because it's probably quite a few, and there are definitely more aircraft kits than there were armour kits. There will be a part 3, and that will be my car kits. Primarily F1, but not all, and that will be out at some point in the future. Obviously, because it couldn't be out in the past, because that wouldn't make sense. But yes, at some point, not my next video, but you know, at some point, I will upload that video for the car kits in my stash. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Take care and have fun modelling.